Welcome back to DIYs with Sonja. Today I'm sharing 25 stunning DIY fall high-end dupes on a budget, all inspired by Pottery Barn, Crate and Barrel, Co, and more. These are the luxury look for less projects I've created throughout this season, and I've styled them all around my home for a cozy, high-end fall look without that designer price tag. If you love elegant fall decorating ideas, budget-friendly DIY home decor, or just want inspiration to elevate your space with timeless pieces, you are in the right place. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell so you never miss more high-end dupes, Pottery Barn inspired DIYs, and seasonal decorating ideas coming your way. Christmas is almost starting on my channel as well, so make sure that bell is on. All right, let's jump right into these 25 easy and affordable fall DIYs that will make your home look designer worthy on a dime. I'm recreating the beautiful paper mache pumpkins from Crate and Barrel. Instead of paper mache, I picked up two pumpkins from Dollarama, one for $3.50 and a smaller one for $2.75, and decided to give them the same look with paint and texture. For this DIY, I am using Dixie Belle burlap and coffee bean chalk paints and sea spray additive, or you can use baking soda if you don't have it. I mixed burlap paint with just a touch of coffee bean to darken it lightly, then added about 3/4 of a scoop of sea spray for texture. My mix was a little too thick, so I added a bit more paint until it was spreadable, following the same measurements but not adding the sea spray. For the first pumpkin, I applied one coat of this mixture all over, including the stem. The coverage was great. One coat was all it needed. For the second pumpkin, I wanted it darker, so I'm using the same mixture and just adding 2 teaspoons of coffee bean paint to deepen the color and paint the smaller pumpkin in that shade. This spray gives it a beautiful textured finish that looks so close to that Crate and Barrel version. The original paper mache, but I love how this method is quicker, less messy, and just as beautiful. And here's the finished look. Simple, textured, high-end pumpkin on a budget. I've already styled these in my fall decor, so make sure you check out at Home with Sonja channel to see how I use them in decorating video. We're starting with what I think is the easiest project of the day, a high-end framed art piece. I found this 12 by 16 stretch canvas at Dollarama for about $3.50, and I paired it with a beautiful fall-inspired print I ordered from Temu. These are very inexpensive, usually $2-3. It has that moody oil painting look with a soft fall scene and inspired by the Serena Valley print from Co, which retails for $879. Gorgeous, Absolutely. Affordable, not so much. To start this DIY, I carefully pulled out all the staples from back of the canvas to separate it from the wooden frame. Keep at least four of those staples. You'll use them to secure the corners later. This part is a little tedious, but trust me, it's worth it. If you have a staple removal, it'll save your hands a lot of work. Also, try to avoid bending the frame as you go. Use the safe staples to secure the corners so they don't pop apart. A dab of wood glue or hot glue in each joint will give it extra strength as well. And also use a hammer, not the back of the knife, to do this part. I'm using Dixie Belle's gel stain in walnut for a deep, rich tone. I applied it with you can apply this with a cloth or a brush. I did it with a cloth and I let it sit for a few minutes, then wipe off the excess. Use a small brush to get into the crevices so you don't leave light patches. You can also do a paint wash if you don't have stain. Mix paint with a bit of water and brush it on us for a similar effect. Once the frame is fully dry, very important to prevent fingerprints transferring stain onto the print. Hot glue your artwork to the back. Keep your edges tight so the print doesn't curl. If you get any glue seepage, gently scrape it away while it's still warm. I've shared many different ways to get these prints. Maybe I cannot print them this big at home, but you definitely can take them places to print. But if you are looking just for like an 8 by 10 print, there's a ton of them free, or you can buy also prints that you can print at home on Etsy. There are many, many choices for you out there. And here it is, a high-end look for under $10. I've already styled this in my home and love how it adds that designer touch. And if you want to see how I did that, make sure you head on over to my home channel. Link is in the description box. Next up, we're recreating Pottery Barn's stunning brass pumpkins, which sell for quite a bit, but we're making them for just a few dollars each. I grabbed several pumpkins from Dollarama. One of those pumpkins I had on hand, so the ones from Dollarama were foam, and the one that I had on hand was made out of clay. I spray painted these first, and I used antique brass as well as black spray paint. I started with an antique spray paint first and then gave them a very light spritz of black spray paint to add the depth. You want to spray in short bursts rather than long sweeps. It helps create that aged metal look. Once the paint is fully dry, and this is again a key, it has to be fully dried. I did add some antique gold gilding wax and with a small brush, or you can use your finger if you wish to highlight the ridges and curves. This gives that beautiful dimensional metallic finish. And just like that, high-end brass pumpkins for fractions of the price. These look stunning grouped together on a console or as a centerpiece. If you're loving these high-end look for less, now's the perfect time to hit that subscribe button and tap the like. It's free, it helps the channel, and it lets me know to keep bringing you more gorgeous budget-friendly DIYs. These maple leaf cutouts from Dollarama cost about $2 each and immediately reminded me of the Pottery Barn's marble leaf coasters. To start this project, I took off the tassel and the beads. You want to save this for a different project, the tassel and the beads. I think these are such a pretty decor with the tassels, but without them, they look even better. And I love the detailing of the leaf. I coated the leaves in a creamy chalk paint. I used Dixie Belle's Ecru and make sure to get into all the grooves and paint the backs too. Now to create that faux marble wood look, once dry, I use the Dixie Belle's Van Dyke glaze and a chippy brush to drag strokes along the leaf, mimicking the wood grain. Then I press the glaze into the grooves with the brush and blended it out so it looks all natural. If you want them more marble than wood, skip the heavy glaze and instead do soft gray veining with a fine brush. To finish, I finished it with the spray wax to make them a little more stain resistant. Unfortunately, I did not record this step. These turned out so chic, perfect for a coffee table or fall table settings. For the last project, I wanted to recreate Crate and Barrel's gorgeous crabapple branches without the heavy price tag. I had several old forsythia stems that weren't looking great, so I removed all the flowers. Then I took Fall Mini Apples stems from Dollar Tree. I'm not sure if these are apples or pomegranates or some sort of a berry. And if you see, they're kind of with the short stems. So I took those apart and started attaching them to the longer branches, just popping them into little spots that the flowers were in. You can also use real branches from your yard for an even more realistic look. Just make sure they are dry. I always feel that the high-end stems tend to be longer and wispier. I did, however, find that these ones were a little bit top heavy once I added the apples to them or the berries. So I ended up clipping them and making them a touch shorter just so that way they don't fall over on the top. And they are still quite long. I also reused the leaves from the apple stems, and I love the way these looks. But if yours look too plasticky, dry brush them with a bit of muted green or brown paint for a softer, realistic tone. These look beautiful as a standalone statement in a tall vase or mixed into a large fall arrangement. I'm starting with this thrifted pumpkin that I picked up for $5.49. It had some twine wrapped around it, and while I love the overall shape, it looked like it might have been a DIY someone else had tried. I knew I wanted to give it a fresh start. The first step was snapping off all the twine. Then I took apart the top. I loved the stem and the curly little vine detail, but it also had multiple leaves and embellishments that I wanted to remove. Once those were off, I reattached just the vine piece to keep the natural look. My inspiration for this makeover came from Pottery Barn black pumpkins, which are currently on clearance. Their tall pumpkins are priced at $23.97 and extra large ones go up to $87.97. By comparison, my DIY cost me under $7, including all the supplies. For paint, I used Dixie Belle Mineral Chalk Paint in color Midnight Sky. It only required one coat for full coverage. After letting it dry completely, I went in with Dixie Belle White Wax, applying it into all the grooves and blending it out with the brush until I reached the look I wanted. This dupe turned out so close to the Pottery Barn version, and I think it makes such a beautiful addition to my fall and Halloween decor. If you guys haven't noticed, for the past year I've been filming most of my DIYs in the kitchen because the lighting is just so good. But the truth is, it hasn't always been ideal. Sometimes it gets way too sunny, and the curtains I had before really didn't help. Next up, I found these two pairs at Dollarama for just $2. You can also often find similar pairs at thrift stores or even Dollar Tree. My inspiration for this DIY came from Olive Ateliers marble pears, which are stunning but definitely pricey. Of course, mine aren't marble, but I knew I could recreate the look with paint. I started with Dixie Belle Terra Clay paint in color wheat. This paint has a beautiful matte finish with soft, slightly textured feel, which makes it a perfect base coat. Once they're dry, I pulled out a few more paints to build dimension. I went with Dixie Belle chalk paint in pine cone, in as well as chocolate, and also Dixie Belle's silk paint in Hampton olive. Plus, I kept the wheat on hand for blending. Using a craft sponge, I dabbed on colors, blending as I went to create the layered organic look you'd see in real marble. In the end, I mainly used pinecone, hemp, and olive and wheat for blending, stopping when I felt the depth look natural. These pears turned out so vintage looking and high end. I absolutely love them, and the best part is they work not just for fall, but as everyday decor year round. If you're enjoying these high-end fall dupes so far, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. It really lets me know you're loving this type of content. And if you're not already subscribed, I'd love for you to join me here on DIYs with Sonja. Make sure to turn on that notification bell so you don't miss any of my upcoming seasonal DIYs. For my last project, and one of my favorites, I picked up these fall magnolia leaves for $3.75 each. It did take some hunting. I had to visit 4 different dollar stores to find enough, but I ended up with 5 and used 3 for this DIY. The inspiration for this DIY came a floral, and these are absolutely beautiful. And I wanted to elevate mine to look even more high end. And the first step was removing the leaves from the stems. For paint, I used Dixie Belle Mineral Chalk Paint in chocolate on one side, making sure to fully cover it so no red peeked through. Once dry, I flipped the leaves and painted the other side with Dixie Belle Silk Paint in Hampton Olive. This is a gorgeous green, and since the inspiration piece is two-tone, it was the perfect match. The original also had a little bit of gold detailing, but I chose not to add that this time because I love the richness of the brown and green combination. Once everything was fully dry, I reattached the leaves to their stems. This project takes some time with the painting and drying, but trust me, the result is so worth it. I also shared a short on these recently, and I still can't get over how high-end they look. The blend of the chocolate and green gives them such a realistic, elevated feel. For my next project, I'm sharing a couple of different pumpkin makeovers. These are Dollarama pumpkins for $5 each, and you've seen me use them in so many DIYs. I love their size and detail, but I don't love the colors. They're either too shiny or too bold for my style. For the first pumpkin, I kept it simple with just one paint. Last year, I tried mixing multiple paints to get that terracotta shade, but I could never quite land on the right color. This time, I used Dixie Belle's Terra Clay paint in Marigold. 2 coats later, the pumpkin had the perfect warm tone. Don't forget to carefully paint or touch up the stem so the whole piece looks cohesive. For the second pumpkin, which has a slightly different shape, my inspiration was a muted green McGee & Co. pumpkin. I didn't have the exact color, so I mixed what I had, about 2 tablespoons of Briar Patch paint in 2 teaspoons of white, adding a little at a time until I got the soft green-blue shade I wanted. This pumpkin also took 2 coats. The paint doesn't always go on smoothly over these finishes, so if you'd like, you can use a primer or thicken your paint with baking soda for more texture. I painted mine with 2 coats and that seemed to have done the trick. And after the second coat dried, I went in with the besting wax in black, working it into the creases for depth. After I was finished with that, I lightly dry brushed over everything with the base color to soften and blend the wax. Finally, I painted the stem with chocolate Dixie Belle chalk paint, and I am obsessed with how this one turned out. And if you guys are enjoying these DIYs, make sure you give this video a thumbs up. It lets me know you guys love these type of videos. And if you're not subscribed, I would love for you to press the subscribe button as well as the notification bell so you become part of my YouTube family and don't miss any new uploads. Next, I wanted to show you yet another way to make over your florals for high-end looks. Florals can get really pricey and sometimes the colors you want are hard to find. I've always loved the oak stems from Magnolia, but since I can't order them here in Canada, I decided to create my own. Dollarama sells these oak stems for $2.50 each. They have a nice shape, but one side is covered in glitter. Always that extra step too far. So I grabbed 2 stems and also clipped some real oak branches from a tree we had trimmed in our yard. That gave me a mix of natural twigs and fall leaves to work with. For paint, I used what I had on hand, dark walnut in satin and gloss leather brown spray paint. I sprayed the leaves sporadically, making sure to cover the glittery side especially. I flipped them and repeated the process until I liked the depth of color. Once everything dried, it was time to assemble my stem. I had glued the leaves to the branches, following the natural flow of the twigs. Magnolia's version of this stem isn't overly full, so I kept mine on a lighter side as well. Be careful not to burn yourself while gluing, and don't be afraid to trim as needed. A single stem in a vase is enough because of the large scale, and I love how this turned out. For this first project, I picked up a frame at Dollarama for just $4.75. I wanted something a little bigger, and they always have such a great affordable options. For the artwork, I printed out a beautiful autumn landscape from an Etsy shop that I love. I'll link it down below because honestly, I've purchased thousands of prints from them and it saves me so much time instead of searching all over the internet. Once I had my print ready, I removed all the packaging and carefully took the frame apart. Using the cardboard backing as a template, I created a custom mat. For this, I used a Bristol board from the dollar store. After tracing everything out, I cut it to size. You can definitely use a craft knife for smoother edges, but I just used scissors and it worked out fine. I wanted the print to sit nicely inside the mat instead of gluing it flat. So I measured out the halfway point and marked equal spacing on all sides. That way the picture would sit centered. Once everything was cut out and exactly the way I wanted it, I trimmed the print just a bit and secured it with the painter's tape. You could also use masking tape. This makes it super easy to switch out the print each season. The inspiration for this project came from Hobby Lobby, which has this very similar style of framed artwork. I love theirs, but since we don't have the Hobby Lobby near me, I couldn't find a frame I liked at the thrift store, I went with a simple black frame. It works perfectly with my decor and I absolutely love how it turned out. Right now, it's sitting in front entryway and it looks stunning. So while we are moving into my busiest season, filming all these fun fall DIYs for you and also navigating one of the sickest seasons. Moving on to the next DIY, I found this ripped glass bowl at the thrift store for $6.50. After removing the very stubborn sticker, I gave it a good wash and dried it well. This is important since we'll be pouring wax inside and you don't want any water in the container. I had broken candle on hand, so I removed the wax and wicks to reuse it. To create a rich fall color, I melted down red candlesticks I picked up at the Dollar Tree and combined them with the leftover wax. My goal was a dark plum or burgundy shade that would work for both fall and Christmas. Once the wax was melted, I centered the wick using a couple of pencils. Mine weren't quite long enough, longer sticks would have worked better, but it still did the job. Then I poured the wax and let it set completely. Once the candle hardened, I trimmed the wick and lit it. And I absolutely love how the ripped glass glows when it's burning. This piece cost me under $10 to make, and I've seen similar ones on Etsy for much more. For my third project, if you've been following me on my home decorating channel, you've probably seen the sign in my front entryway. I wasn't loving it anymore, so I decided to give it a makeover. This was a DIY I made several years ago, so I carefully removed the staples, took the backing out, and set aside the frame. I didn't want to lose the original artwork completely, so I flipped the board over and used the back for a new piece. I chose a vintage style landscape because this print from Go gave me the inspiration for it, and my friend Sandra helped me print across 3 pages. After trimming them down, I used Mod Podge to glue them on to the backing, carefully lining everything up so the seams were barely visible. To give it that hand-painted look, I brushed Mod Podge over top in different directions, mimicking paint strokes. While that dried, I worked on the frame by applying gilding wax. At first I brushed it on, but I found that dabbing it in circular motions gave a much richer and thicker finish. I originally thought I'd add some black wax as well, but once it was done, I loved the look without it. And don't forget to do the sides of the frame too for a finished look. Once everything was dry, I reassembled the frame and added it back to my entryway. It feels so much more cohesive with my decor this year, and I'm so happy with the transformation. If you'd like to see how I styled this piece along with the rest of my fall decor, head over to my home channel at Home with Sonja. I'll link it down below for you. Now for the last DIY, this one was inspired by Pottery Barn pumpkin candles. I found a pumpkin canister at Dollar Tree and thought it would make the perfect dupe. For paint, I used Dixie Belle's Terra Clay paint in a shade Marigold, and I mixed it with sea spray to add texture. You could also use baking soda if you don't have sea spray on hand. After mixing the paint and texture medium, I painted the canister and lid, making sure to cover all sides, including the bottom. Once it dried, it had that beautiful textured ceramic pottery look I love. For the candle, I made it melted soy wax I found at the thrift store, $4.99 for a giant bag, which was such a great deal. I centered the wick, poured in the wax, and let it set. Once it was set, I trimmed it, and I had a gorgeous pumpkin candle for under $3. This piece looks so high-end and would cost so much more if you bought it retail. I'm starting today's DIYs with some florals. I wanted to change the color of my hydrangeas, and a friend suggested using coffee beans or tea bags, so I thought, why not try both? I used coffee grounds from my coffee maker, poured hot boiling water over them, and added 3 black tea bags. I let everything steep for about 10 minutes and then strained out the grounds so they wouldn't stick to the flowers. These hydrangeas were a yard sale find for just $1, but the bright green wasn't quite my style. I took them apart from the stem, added them to the mixture, and I let them soak for 24 hours. I did weigh them down with a plate so they would not float up. But unfortunately, the coffee and tea didn't really alter the color. So on to the plan B. I grabbed my Dixie Belle Terra clay paint in color wheat, and I use a dry brush technique to lightly brush it over the petals. The key here is to keep very little paint on your brush so it doesn't glob up. It took a bit of time, but I loved how natural the leaves were looking. Once that was dry, I went in with a little coffee bean paint using a craft sponge to dab dimension and depth onto the petals. The craft sponge was wet. This step is optional, but it really gives them that high-end look. And I followed the same steps as dry brushing, where I added the paint to the sponge and then dabbed some of it off and then went in onto the flowers. And here's the best part. My inspiration came from Pottery Barn, Maggie & Co., and similar store where hydrangeas can cost a lot more. Mine just $1 for 2 bunches, and with a little paint, they look like high-end stems you can use year-round, not just for fall. And you can find these type of hydrangeas all over the place. Dollar Tree has them, Dollarama has them. They just might not be the right color, so this technique would work really well with any of those. And a fun fact, did you know that hydrangeas naturally change color depending on the pH of the soil? That's why some bloom pink, blue, or purple. So painting them is our DIY version of nature's trick. And then once I was done painting, I reassembled the stems. And here they are. I think they turned out absolutely stunning. Next, I picked up this simple gold frame at Dollar Tree. The gold was fine, but I wanted a more antique look. So back again with my coffee bean paint for some dry brushing. If you never dry brushed before, it's simple. Dip your brush in the paint, wipe most of it off on a paper towel, and then lightly drag it across the surface. It adds instant age and dimension without fully covering the base color. On the sides, I blended it a bit with a paper towel to soften the lines, and once dry, I was ready to add my art. I printed this vintage pear print at home from a shop I'll link down below, Etsy shop. They have thousands of gorgeous vintage prints for every season, and you can resize them to fit any frame. To give the art a painted look, I used Mod Podge and brushed it in strokes across the background and the pears, mimicking the texture of oil paint. Once dry, I glued the print into my frame, though tape works too if you want to swap it out seasonally. This entire project cost under $2, and yet frame vintage prints like this can sell for much higher at high-end retailers. If you're enjoying these dollar store and thrifted fall DIY makeovers, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. It really helps my channel grow and lets me know you like to see more high-end fall DIYs for less. And if you're new here, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of my upcoming fall and holiday projects. For my next project, I picked up these woven baskets at Dollar Tree, $1.50 for the white and $1.75 for the gray. I wanted to transform them in an acorn-shaped candle holder. First, I cut away the gray stitching and saved the natural woven pieces, since I needed them for building up the acorn shape. Using hot glue, I stacked and glued the pieces until I reached the height I wanted. Just tall enough to fit a candle inside. For the lid, I took apart 2 baskets using all the natural woven pieces of one and only the top part of the second one to make it wider. So I glued them together to widen the bottom up so it fits over top of the body. And then I added this wooden ring that I found in my stash, and I wrapped it before gluing it with some jute rope. And then I glued it to the top of the lid. It's not an exact dupe of high-end, but it was inspired by the woven pumpkin baskets and candle holders I've seen at stores like Pottery Barn, Crate & Barrel, and many more. I decided to make mine an acorn instead of a pumpkin since my house is already full of pumpkins. You can use this as a candle holder, or a storage container, or just a unique piece of fall decor. Total cost just a couple of dollars. For the last DIY, I wanted to create an acorn candle holder. I've seen people use these in their decor, many different shapes, sizes. I haven't been able to source any of them from any of the stores locally. Online, there are many different types that you can get, but I was quite excited when I saw this acorn jar at Dollar Tree. So I used one Dollar Tree's little acorn jar, and they are about the same size as their pumpkin jars. You could paint or stain this, but I liked the way it looked and decided to turn it into a candle. I melted down leftover wax from pumpkin spice and apple scented candles. I secured a wick in the jar. I am using a leftover wooden wick that I had on hand, and I poured the melted wax inside. You don't have to use the wooden wick, you can use any wick you have. You can also use any wax you have. And when melting wax in a glass container, just add it in a pot of water, but not too much, or the container will float. Once this thing had cooled, I had a beautiful, cozy scented full candle in an adorable acorn jar for under $2. I'm starting today's DIY with a very simple makeover that makes a huge impact. I picked up this candle holder from Dollarama for under $5. It actually came with a candle and a little LED candle and a little fall wreath around it, but I wasn't loving the leaves, so the first step was removing those. Now, once everything was off, honestly, this piece could already pass as a high-end Pottery Barn dupe as is, but since this is a DIY channel, I wanted to take it a step further. The inspiration for this piece came from the handcrafted found pumpkin candle holder from Pottery Barn. Theirs is beautiful, but it comes with a pretty high price tag. Mine is a medium size, and already the savings are huge. For paint, I'm using Krylon Metallic Gold spray paint from Michaels. Here's a little tip. When spray painting, always do light, even coats and rotate the pieces so you can get into all the little nooks and crannies. Several thin coats will give you a smooth, professional finish without the drips. And here's how it turned out. A gorgeous Pottery Barn inspired fall candle holder dupe that looks elegant, high-end for just a few dollars. And for my last project, I picked up these pumpkins at Dollarama for $4.75 each. The inspiration came from the Pottery Barn pumpkin candles, which are much, much more expensive. First, I removed the stems and saved them for future DIYs. Then, using a knife, I carved out the hole in the top just big enough to fit the flickering candle. First, I used a pepper core to make a hole all the way through, but not poking it not making the hole on the other side. And then I used the knife to carve out the precise size. And the LED candles I also found at Dollarama for $1.75. Pro tip, carve slowly and test fit as you go. And if you hate the squeaky sound of cutting styrofoam like I do, pop in some headphones while you work. Once the pumpkins were prepped, I painted one in Dixie Bell's silk paint in Hampton Olive and the other one in Dixie Bell's Marigold. Both needed two coats since styrofoam can be tricky to paint adhesion. After they dried, I sealed them with Dixie Bell's clear coat in gloss to give them that waxy candle-like shine. To make them look even more realistic, I lightly dabbed on some of Dixie Bell's cotton paint to mimic the white waxy variation you can see in real candles. I think these turned out so cute and for around $12 total for both. I got two high-end Pottery Barn candle pumpkins that look amazing styled on a mantle, table centerpiece, or a shelf. First DIY, I picked up these red apples at the dollar store. The color really doesn't matter, but I couldn't thrift any this time, so I grabbed these. They were $2 or $3 for both. What I'm trying to do here is dupe some decorative apples I've seen on Amazon that I really love. On Amazon, they come in variety of sizes. Mine were both the same size, but if you could find different sizes, it will actually will make the final display look even better. I also grabbed some regular school glue and mixed it with water in equal parts along with some plain white tissue paper, though again the color does not matter. One quick tip, as I started applying the glue mixture to the apples, the red color began to bleed through and actually come off the apples. That might just be because they were from the dollar store, but to prevent this, I suggest applying a coat of chalk paint first before paper macheing. I applied about 4 coats total, 2 or 3 coats the first time, and then one more after they fully dried. Once I had the texture I wanted, and they had dried fully, I painted the apples with Ixibel's cotton paint, which has great coverage. 1 coat was enough to cover all the red, and it's okay if some of it peeks through. While the paint was still wet, I went in with a sponge, grass sponge that I wetted and dabbed on some Dixie Belle's pine cone, which is a soft greenish brown shade. As I mentioned, I used a damped craft sponge to apply it randomly, and then I blended it out with the brush. I think these apples turned out so cute and they go perfectly with the earthy, muted fall theme I'm styling with this year. Third project, I went back to Dollarama and picked up more pumpkins because I just love their shape. They come in variety of sizes, priced between $3.50 and $5. I painted them with Ixibel Ecru as the base color. You might have already seen my short on this project earlier this week. Honestly, I love this paint color so much that I could just leave the pumpkin as is. It looks stunning even on its own. It took about 1.5 coats to get full coverage. Since it was hot outside, I left them to dry outdoors, which sped up the process. While they were still drying, I added another half a coat, just covering areas that the orange was peeking through. Then I brought them inside and I went in with Dixie Belle's Van Dyke brown glaze. I applied it generously using a stippling brush, then blended upward and downward with a larger brush, cleaning it between strokes. And then I repeated the same process with another larger brush for a layered effect. These pumpkins were inspired by the resin wood pumpkins from Pottery Barn, and I have to say I think mine turned out just as good, maybe even better. I've already styled them in my entryway, and you'd never know they started as bright orange dollar store pumpkins. Don't forget to cover the stems as well for a complete finish. Next up, we're making one of those gorgeous wooden dough bowl candles that you see at Crate and Barrel and Pottery Barn and boutique shops. I thrifted this bowl for a couple of months ago for again $7.99, and I knew it would be perfect for this. This bowl did come from Crate and Barrel originally, but is no longer on their website. I also picked up 4 pounds of soya wax, flakes, and wooden wicks at Michael's with coupons, hoping that that would be enough. It wasn't quite, but it still turned out great. I wasn't quite sure what to use to melt the wax because I had such a large quantity, and it's best that you melt it all at once. So I decided to use my heavy duty stainless steel pot, and I'm happy to report that it washed beautifully right after. I had no residue left over. It cleaned quite well. While the wax was melting, I placed 3 wicks in a bowl. Once melted, I carefully pour the wax. Just be cautious, it's hot and it can splash. Now, honestly, I did not love the natural scent of this wax, so I added about 4 ounces of essential oils, eucalyptus, cinnamon, cedarwood, and orange, to create a cozy fall scent that could carry into the holidays. Ideally, you'd mix oils in the wax before pouring, but I just adjusted on the fly. Once the wax cooled, I trimmed the wicks and decided not to add more wax. The bowl still looked great, and next time I'll know to buy more flakes. This dupe cost me around $40, which is amazing considering similar candles sell for $100 to $150. It's simple, elegant, and makes the perfect centerpiece. Let me know in the comments if you want a full candle tutorial or a list of fall scent combos you can try. And don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you're enjoying it so far, and if you haven't pressed that subscribe button, what are you waiting for? My last DIY, my friend Sandra actually thrifted this pumpkin for me. It was under $6. I love the shape, but I did not love the green tinges it had in random spots. So I took Rust-Oleum nutmeg spray paint and gave it a full coat. I turned it upside down and around to make sure I got into all the nooks and crannies. Now it has a beautiful even finish that looks just like the High-End pumpkins you see at Pottery Barn, Crate & Barrel, and some other stores. And that's all 25 of my DIY fall high-end dupes on a budget. I hope this video gave you tons of inspiration to create your own luxury look for less this season. Let me know in the comments which DIY was your favorite or which one you're planning to make next. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps my channel grow and reach more DIY lovers like you. Make sure to subscribe before you go and turn on the bell so you don't miss any of my upcoming holiday DIYs, Pottery Barn dupes, and seasonal decorating ideas. Thank you so much for watching and spending time with me today, and I'll see you in my next one.
I know that I haven't been who I was. I am supposed to be the one you can trust. I feel so useless cause I let you down. I hope there's some way I can make it alright, cause I know that